nation.
Burkina Faso shocked the world last night. After 4 silent years, a $300 million stadium, bigger, brighter, and far more advanced than anyone expected, lit up Ouagadougou. Crowds roared, legends stood in awe, and for a moment, it seemed as though an entire nation had been reborn. But how did this happen? Why now? And what does it mean for a country that's been fighting just to stand tall? Let's find out. For 4 years, the once bustling heart of Burkina Faso's sports culture had fallen eerily quiet. The old August 4th Stadium, a place where dreams were cheered into existence and national pride echoed from one end to the other, had become a hollow shell. Its seats were unsafe, its turf unfit for professional play, and its very name became synonymous with disappointment. People drove past its crumbling walls not with excitement but with quiet resignation, avoiding eye contact as though acknowledging it meant accepting a kind of national failure. That silence ended in one night, and it ended with a thunderous crash. On the evening of the grand reopening, the city of Ouagadougou seemed to hold its breath. From the airport to the crowded city markets, whispers of what awaited behind the new stadium gates spread like wildfire. By dusk, an endless river of people flowed toward the venue. Street vendors abandoned their usual corners to set up near the stadium, selling flags, painted masks, and makeshift horns. Taxi drivers abandoned their ordinary routes, ferrying eager fans for free, simply to be part of something historic. The stadium itself stood transformed, gleaming with polished steel beams and illuminated glass panels. The old August 4th Stadium was unrecognizable. This was a structure built not just for sports, but for symbolism. High-definition digital screens lit up the forecourt with live countdowns, and a newly built pedestrian plaza, lined with sculptures of stallions, the national team's emblem, set the tone before anyone even stepped inside. When the gates opened, the roar was immediate. It wasn't just from the 26,000 fans lucky enough to get tickets, but from those gathered outside, climbing trees and rooftops for a glimpse of what had once felt impossible. The Ibrahim Traoré Stadium had arrived, and it was nothing like what anyone remembered. Inside, the air was thick with emotion. The new seating arrangements curved steeply around the pitch, giving even the furthest fan an intimate view of the action. Children who had never seen a home game in their lives clung to their parents' hands, staring wide-eyed at the glowing floodlights. Entire families brought worn-out jerseys from matches long past, holding them like artifacts that finally had a home again. The opening ceremony elevated the moment into legend. President Ibrahim Traoré walked onto the pitch flanked by African football icons Samuel Eto'o and Rigobert Song, their presence an unmistakable message. Burkina Faso was ready to stand with the greats. Above them, fireworks shattered the night sky, their colors reflecting off the stadium's newly installed roof panels, while dancers in traditional Mossi attire performed routines that merged local heritage with global spectacle. Even seasoned reporters admitted they weren't prepared for the scale of the transformation. "It's like walking into another country's capital," one international journalist whispered, glancing up at the VIP lounges lined with tinted glass and polished brass railings. Yet, behind all the celebration, a quiet question lingered. How did a country facing so many challenges manage to achieve something so monumental? The roar of the reopening night didn't appear out of thin air. It was the culmination of a decision so bold that even those closest to power doubted it could ever work. To understand how the Ibrahim Traoré Stadium came into existence, you have to travel back to when the silence of the old August 4th Stadium still hung heavy over Ouagadougou. In those years of exile, when the national team played their home matches abroad, a strange kind of fatigue spread through the nation. Football fans, once animated, proud, and unshakable, found themselves disconnected. Children grew up watching their team only through flickering television broadcasts from foreign stadiums. Local businesses around the old venue closed, unable to survive without matchday crowds. Even the players admitted something was missing. "It's like fighting for a flag you can't touch," one Stallions veteran said in an interview at the time. This was the moment President Ibrahim Traoré stepped in with a vision that many initially dismissed as unrealistic. Not to patch up the old stadium, but to rebuild it entirely, from foundation to rooftop, and to make it one of Africa's most advanced sports venues. At first, the announcement raised eyebrows. Burkina Faso was grappling with economic and security challenges. International critics asked, why spend hundreds of millions on a stadium when there are roads to fix, schools to build, and an economy to stabilize? But Traoré argued that this was not just about a sports venue, it was about re-engineering confidence. A nation needs symbols, he said in one cabinet meeting, according to insiders. And this one will tell every citizen, every young person, that we can build something great on our soil. With that declaration, planning began. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. Instead of outsourcing the entire project to foreign firms, the administration brought in a hybrid model: international architects and engineers paired with local construction teams and suppliers. The aim wasn't just to import expertise, but to transfer knowledge and create jobs for Burkinabe workers. The vision was ambitious: 26,000 seats positioned for maximum viewing angles, Olympic standard running tracks, advanced training facilities, medical and recovery suites for athletes, and hospitality lounges meeting international luxury standards. It was designed to be more than a football venue, a multi-purpose hub capable of hosting global athletics events, cultural festivals, and even international political summits. Financing was equally unconventional. Instead of taking on heavy international loans, which had burdened past African infrastructure projects, the government pursued a mixed model, redirecting part of national development funds, tapping into public-private partnerships, and negotiating sponsorships with regional businesses that saw value in being part of what they were already calling the Pride of Ouagadougou. The timeline was equally aggressive. What experts said would take 6 to 7 years, the government planned for under 4. Crews worked around the clock, sometimes sleeping on site to meet deadlines. The project didn't just build a stadium. It created thousands of temporary jobs and trained hundreds of local engineers, architects, and technicians who would later carry those skills into other national projects. By the time the last panel of steel was bolted into place, the country had already begun to change. Ouagadougou saw an influx of new businesses preparing for an expected wave of tourism and sports-related commerce. Schools began reviving youth sports programs, inspired by the prospect of children one day playing in a world-class facility in their capital. What had started as an idea dismissed as unrealistic became a national mission, one that redefined what the country thought was possible. Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. When the last steel beam was set and the final panel of glass polished, the Ibrahim Traoré Stadium was no longer just a construction project. It had evolved into something larger, something intangible. It became a symbol, carrying the weight of national pride and a vision of a future unshackled from doubt. In the months leading up to the reopening, this transformation could already be felt in everyday life. Streets once filled with skepticism were now lined with murals celebrating the new stadium. Youth teams, who previously played on rough, uneven fields with makeshift goals, began holding impromptu tournaments simply because, as one coach put it, the kids can now see where they might play one day, and it's real. The stadium came to represent more than football. It was seen as proof that Burkina Faso could deliver on big promises at a time when the world wasn't expecting it. Social media buzzed with images of its futuristic design, and diaspora communities began sharing travel plans to witness its unveiling in person. For many, it wasn't just a place to watch a match. It was a physical reminder that their country could create something world-class on its terms. On the night of the grand opening, the symbolic nature of the stadium became crystal clear. The event began not with a kickoff, but with a carefully choreographed performance, combining traditional music, modern light displays, and storytelling elements drawn from Burkina Faso's cultural heritage. Dancers in Mosi attire moved across the pitch alongside holographic projections of legendary Burkinabe athletes, merging past and future into one narrative. We have been great, and we will be great again. The emotional connection deepened during the national anthem. Fans didn't just sing, they shouted every word, their voices uniting in a deafening chorus. Children stood on their seats waving flags while elders wept openly, whispering prayers of gratitude. For a country that had spent 4 long years without a home stadium, it was more than ceremonial, it was healing. This symbolism extended beyond sports. Activists saw it as evidence that national projects could be completed without total reliance on outside forces. Teachers began using the stadium as an example in classrooms of what happens when vision meets execution. Even artists tapped into the energy, producing songs, paintings, and documentaries capturing the spirit of what many were calling the rebirth of Ouagadougou. The naming of the stadium itself amplified its symbolic weight. Dedicating it to President Ibrahim Traoré was controversial at first, with some calling it premature. Yet, as details of his direct involvement in initiating and executing the project came to light, the narrative shifted. People began associating the stadium not just with one man, but with a new national identity, one focused on youth empowerment, cultural pride, and independence. There was also the element of timing. The unveiling happened during a period of national uncertainty, when morale was fragile and public trust in major institutions had been shaky. The completed stadium, standing tall, modern, and undeniably Burkinabe, became a physical antidote to that unease. It told every citizen, look what we can achieve, even when the world doubts us. By the end of that opening night, it was clear the stadium had transcended its physical purpose. People weren't leaving talking about the score of the match or the celebrity guests. They were leaving with something deeper, a sense of belonging and proof that Burkina Faso could rise above limitations. And as word of the stadium spread beyond national borders, one question grew louder. Could this new symbol place Burkina Faso alongside Africa's great sporting nations? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. The Ibrahim Traoré Stadium wasn't built to compete in size with Africa's mega arenas, but its arrival inevitably sparked comparisons. For decades, discussions of world-class sporting infrastructure in Africa revolved around names like Johannesburg's Soccer City with its 95,000 seat capacity, the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban with its iconic arch, or the vast, futuristic venues Morocco prepared for continental tournaments. Burkina Faso had never been in that conversation until now. What set the Ibrahim Traoré Stadium apart was not how many fans it could seat, but how it treated every single person inside it. From the design of the steep stands ensuring clear sight lines for all spectators to the installation of digital scoreboards capable of broadcasting ultra-high-definition replays, every element was crafted to meet international expectations. Add to that the luxury VIP lounges, athlete recovery and performance labs, and hybrid turf built to FIFA's latest specifications, and the picture became clear. This was a stadium designed to make Burkina Faso competitive on a global stage. International observers took notice quickly. The Confederation of African Football (CAF) and FIFA officials didn't just approve the venue for home matches. They described it as future-ready, meaning it could host events far beyond domestic league games or even international qualifiers. That phrase sent a wave of excitement through the country. Future-ready implied the potential to one day bid for continental tournaments, perhaps even share hosting duties for global sporting spectacles. But the comparisons went beyond technical standards. This was about perception. For years, Burkina Faso had been seen as a nation passionate about sports but lacking the infrastructure to match its ambitions. The Stallions' memorable run to the Africa Cup of Nations final in 2013 felt bittersweet because the team celebrated abroad, not at home. Now, with the Ibrahim Traoré Stadium, that perception shifted. People began to talk about Burkina Faso in the same breath as countries historically known for their sports investments. Other African nations also took note. Delegations from neighboring countries reportedly visited Ouagadougou to study how a mid-sized, resource-conscious nation delivered a world-class stadium in record time without incurring the massive debts often linked to such projects. This is the kind of facility we need: efficient, versatile, and proudly African, said one visiting sports official from West Africa, according to local media. The stadium's multi-purpose design also placed it in a different league. While many African stadiums remain underutilized outside of football season, the Ibrahim Traoré Stadium was intentionally built to host athletics, concerts, cultural festivals, and even international political summits. Its acoustic engineering supports live performances. Its open plazas and modular seating make it possible to adapt for everything from large-scale religious gatherings to global esports tournaments. The global press started calling it the Ouagadougou model, a phrase that hinted at something bigger than bricks and seats. It was about how a country not known for lavish budgets or sprawling urban centers could deliver a facility that met international standards while maintaining its own identity. Murals of stallions running across the entry gates, intricate carvings inspired by Mossy traditions in the VIP corridors, and locally sourced building materials showcased a balance between modernization and cultural authenticity rarely seen in stadium design. This shift in reputation was not lost on Burkina Faso fans. For years they had traveled across borders to watch their team or stayed glued to screens at home, quietly envious of countries with towering arenas and glitzy facilities. Now, standing inside their modern venue, they no longer felt like outsiders looking in. They were hosts, ready to welcome the world. And as international analysts debated whether Burkina Faso might one day bid for a major continental tournament, a new discussion began at home. What would this stadium mean for the country beyond football, beyond sport itself? The Ibrahim Traoré Stadium was no longer just a building. It had become the center of a new national rhythm, influencing everything from economics to culture and even education. One of the most immediate impacts has been economic. Businesses surrounding the stadium that had been dormant for years suddenly sprang back to life. Small restaurants and cafes reopened, vendors set up permanent stalls, and new hotels are already under construction to meet anticipated demand from visiting fans and international tourists. For many residents, the stadium has become a source of livelihoods, not just on match days, but year-round. The tourism industry, often overshadowed by other sectors in Burkina Faso, is experiencing renewed energy. International visitors have started planning trips specifically to see the stadium, often combining their visits with cultural experiences unique to Ouagadougou. Local tour operators have quickly adapted, offering stadium tours, sports-themed itineraries, and cultural festivals timed around major matches and events. The stadium is poised to become more than a sports destination. It is evolving into a landmark attraction in its own right. Youth development is another area seeing transformative change. For years, young athletes dreamed of playing in stadiums they saw only on television. Now, those dreams feel closer and more attainable. Schools and community sports programs are expanding their efforts, with new training academies being built to feed talent into professional leagues and, eventually, the national team. The government has hinted at partnerships with international clubs to develop coaching programs, bringing in experienced professionals to train young players on the same pitches used by the national squad. The stadium is also redefining culture and entertainment. Its flexible design means it can seamlessly shift from hosting international football matches to staging music concerts, cultural festivals, and even global technology expos. Plans are already underway to host a Pan-African cultural showcase, an event expected to draw artists, performers, and tourists from across the continent. For the first time in decades, Ouagadougou is positioning itself not just as a political capital, but as a cultural hub. The symbolic dimension of the stadium remains powerful. Where there was once skepticism about whether Burkina Faso could deliver on such an ambitious project, there is now confidence, and that confidence is spreading. Community leaders have started discussing how the stadium model can be applied to other areas: modernized healthcare centers, renewable energy parks, and technology hubs. The Ibrahim Traoré Stadium has become proof of concept that Burkina Faso can take on bold, transformative projects and succeed. Internationally, the stadium has opened doors. Sports federations and cultural organizations that once overlooked Burkina Faso are now considering it for high-profile events. Talks are reportedly underway with regional sports bodies to bring youth tournaments and even CAF Club finals to Ouagadougou. There's even speculation about forming a bid to co-host parts of a future Africa Cup of Nations, something unimaginable only a few years ago. Perhaps the most striking impact is psychological. For everyday citizens, the stadium represents something deeply personal: the return of pride. It's no longer about where the Stallions have to play, it's about where they choose to play, and that choice is finally home. That sense of ownership and belonging is already inspiring new movements in art, education, and entrepreneurship, fueled by the idea that if we could build this, what else can we build? As the stadium lights dim after each event and fans filter out into the streets of Ouagadougou, one thing has become clear. This is not the end of a story, but the beginning of one. The Ibrahim Traoré Stadium is more than a monument. It is a heartbeat, one that will shape Burkina Faso's identity for decades to come. Do you see this stadium as just concrete and steel, or as the start of a new Burkina Faso? Let us know in the comment section. Could this project spark a wave of bold changes across Africa? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.